in the eyes of Western political or business elite, have they completely lost hope that China is going to shift its ideology and to be sort of be more aligned with the Western liberal democratic ideologies? Have they completely lost hope?
The answer is yes. The geopolitical thinking in DC, in Brussels, in London, in Ottawa has shifted, and that the kind of the end of history thesis, the idea that economic engagement will kind of bind China into the present rules-based system, so that at a minimum they're going to support the system as it already exists. Maybe it leads to some kind of political shift over time, but at a minimum, they're going to be kind of locked into maintaining the world as kind of we set it up after the Cold War.
Yeah.
I mean, that thinking is dead. That argument doesn't.
Okay.
That argument doesn't influence, any senior decision maker in the EU, in the White House, and now it sounds naive, right? Okay. So basically, to simplify, the idea was we can separate economics and politics. And now I think basic thinking is, whoa, we have to revisit all of our economic activity that we've been doing, and wake up to which aspects of it were actually political.
Yeah.
We were talking about pension funds, like the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, the Canadian Pension Plan, the big pension plans that have invested and made a lot of money in China over the past sort of 30, 40 years of development. Now, suddenly, we just need to pause. We need to pause and reevaluate our decision framework. We don't have a specific reason, we just have a sense that there are political risks that maybe we haven't thought seriously enough about. I think what's helpful is to imagine a kind of spectrum between things that are politics and things that are business. And you draw a line. Okay, so things on this side of the line are politics. And there are some things that have always been political. Arms trading, right? Oil and gas. This is not just business, this is also political. So if you want to export that, you've got to get political approval, right? And there are things that have been just business, fast-moving consumer goods. Fine, whatever. In recent years, we've seen that line shifting. So, okay, now telecommunications infrastructure, Huawei. We thought it was just business. Now it's political. And I think what is sort of happened now is not that the line has shifted, that line has dissolved. And now people just, I don't know. What is political and what is business? And this is also where, in kind of in a foreign media perspective, China is the boogeyman. You are playing three-dimensional chess with us. And you have these amazing plans and you never get it wrong, and you are manipulating everyone who is Chinese, who is in our country, and every dollar of foreign investment, every state-owned enterprise is all, you are so good at this stuff. That's the fear, right? That it is all politicized and we just can't see it because it's impossible for us to coordinate our people, our companies, our institutions, our resources with the same kind of grand master planning. So for a Chinese company going abroad, that's the uncertainty that you face. And I think it is going to be very, very difficult to just be trusted unless somehow there are areas where we just can't see how it could be politicized. The people who look at the future as sort of a coming contest between East and West, I think that a lot of that conversation is still really stuck in the 20th century, stuck in the Cold War, kind of stuck in the contest between democracy and autocracy. Chinese modernization. The more I think about it, the more I feel like this is an important shift, not just in language, but in framing of kind of the stage of where China's development is today and the kind of issues and opportunities that it presents to China in the world. This shift in language from sort of development to modernization. And I think it's interesting to play with the idea that if there is going to be a contest in the 21st century, it's probably more going to be a contest between different visions or different versions of modernity, of maybe the advanced liberal democracies version of modernity, and how China's top leaders see their vision for modernity, and the contest between those. I can't remember in some of the interviews that we did last year who made what I thought was a really great point, which is that if you add up the populations of all the advanced liberal democracies, it's about 1.1 billion people. And China being 1.4 billion people means that just with China's version of modernity alone, there is the opportunity here to define what modernity means, what the experience of modernity is for the majority of humanity that experiences it, and how it's going to be a distinctive vision from Western modernity. And four things keep coming up for me in the stuff that I'm reading. One is that it's going to be more equitable, with a smaller gap between sort of prosperity and poverty. Two, it's going to be less materialistic, so spiritual civilization. And there is something interesting in that concept. I think of it as maybe different Maslow hierarchy of needs. And if the classic Maslow hierarchy of needs ends with self-actualization, with individual freedom, then this alternative modernity, this spiritual civilization, imagines a kind of like a mass actualization, that we figure out a better way of living together. So less materialistic, more in harmony with nature, and a more peaceful rise somehow. So a clearly different pathway than the kind of colonialism and war that led to the development of a lot of Western countries. I look out there in the world and in popular media on both sides, really setting up a contest for the future. Your version of modernity, our vision for modernity. When in fact there's so much opportunity for cooperation, because actually fundamentally we've identified similar needs, similar things that for both of our societies, all of our societies to improve, these are the things that we need to be working on. And so when you talk about bridge building, setting geopolitics aside, I think that there could be no more productive area for cooperation than sort of exploring together what is the better society that we are both trying to build, and learning from each other. Business has always played an important role in sort of leading the way towards building bridges. Those are often the opportunities that lead us to, it gives us the best reason to learn to understand one another. And I think in the past couple of years, we've been clearly reminded that business thrives when the global context is stable and predictable. And a lot of business has struggled, a lot of investment has kind of been locked up because there's just so much uncertainty. So I think that business looking for opportunities to provide more stability and predictability is going benefit all of us.